The rain slammed against the diner's cracked windows, a relentless drumroll that drowned out the hum of the jukebox in the corner. I sat at the counter, nursing a lukewarm coffee, the bitter tang of it clinging to my tongue. My name's Ethan, 24, a graphic designer with dreams too big for this small-town grease joint. My life was a treadmill. Same shifts, same faces, same ache in my chest for something more. Then he walked in. Caleb, all sharp jawline and stormy eyes, like he'd stepped out of a movie poster. He wore a faded denim jacket, sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms that looked like they could snap a tree in half. He slid into the booth across from me, his boots squeaking on the wet linoleum, and flashed a grin that made my heart stutter. "You look like you're waiting for a plot twist," he said, voice low, like gravel over honey. I laughed, caught off guard, and that was it. I was hooked. He was new in town, said he was crashing at a friend's place, working odd jobs, said he liked the simplicity, the quiet. I bought it. Why wouldn't I? He was magnetic, all confidence and charm, but with this edge, like he was holding something back. We started meeting up after my shifts, sharing fries and stories under the flickering neon sign. He'd talk about his dreams, vague but vivid, of building something real, something lasting. I'd tell him about my art, how I wanted to design posters for indie films, capture stories in a single frame. We'd walk home in the rain, his arm brushing mine, the air electric with unspoken want. I felt alive, like the world had color again. But there was a catch. There always is. Caleb was cagey about his past. No last name, no family stories, just a shrug and a change of subject. I figured he was running from something, maybe a bad breakup, maybe debt. I didn't push. I was too busy falling, too caught up in the way he'd pull me close in the dark, his breath warm against my neck, whispering promises that felt like forever. 3 months in, I was all in, heart first, no parachute. Then the cracks started showing. It was a Tuesday, the kind of gray day that makes you feel like you're drowning in it. I was sketching at the diner when Caleb walked in, his face tight, like he'd been chewing on a secret. He slid into the booth, but his usual grin was gone. "Ethan," he said, voice heavy, "we need to talk." My stomach dropped. Those words never mean anything good. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, and I noticed his hands. Calloused, but clean, no grease stains like you'd expect from a guy who claimed to fix cars for cash. "I haven't been honest," he said, and my heart clenched. Here it comes, I thought. He's married. He's leaving. He's not who he says he is. "I'm not broke," he admitted, eyes locked on mine, searching for something. "I've got money. A lot of it. I just wanted to know if you'd stick around without it." The words hit like a punch. I stared at him, the diner's hum fading to a dull roar in my ears. He'd been testing me? This whole time, the late-night talks, the stolen kisses, the way he'd hold me like I was his anchor. It was all part of some game? "You lied," I said, voice shaking, coffee forgotten. "You made me think you were someone else." His jaw tightened, but he didn't look away. "I needed to know you weren't after my wallet, Ethan. People, they see money and they change." I had to be sure. I wanted to scream, to throw the coffee mug at the wall, but all I could do was laugh, bitter and sharp. "Sure of what? That I'm not some gold digger? That I'd love you even if you were scraping by." My voice cracked, and I hated it. I hated how much I cared. He reached for my hand, but I pulled back, the sting of betrayal burning hotter than my anger. "You don't get to play God with my heart, Caleb." I stood, grabbing my sketchbook, the edges of the pages crumpled from my grip. "I need space." He called after me, but I was already out the door, the rain soaking me to the bone, washing away the warmth of his touch. For days, I ignored his texts, his calls, the voicemails that piled up like leaves in a storm. I threw myself into work, sketching until my fingers ached, trying to drown out the ache in my chest. But every line I drew turned into him. His eyes, his hands, the curve of his lips when he smiled. I hated how much I missed him, how much I wanted to believe he'd lied for a reason that made sense. Then, one night, I found a note slipped under my apartment door. No signature, just a scrawled address and a time. Midnight. The old bridge. Please. My gut told me it was him, and against every shred of logic, I went. The bridge was a skeleton of rusted steel, the river below churning black under the moon. Caleb was there, leaning against the railing, his silhouette sharp against the night. He didn't turn when I approached, but I heard his breath hitch, like he'd been holding it for hours. "I messed up," he said, voice raw, like he'd been crying. "I thought I was protecting myself, but I hurt you, and that's worse." I stood there, arms crossed, the cold biting through my jacket. "Why didn't you just trust me?" I asked, quieter than I meant. He turned then, and his eyes were red, glistening. "Because everyone I've ever trusted has left, Ethan. My parents, my friends, they all wanted something. I thought you'd be different, but I was too scared to find out without this." He gestured vaguely, like he was pointing at the lie itself. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to walk away and never look back. But standing there, under the weight of his confession, I saw the boy behind the alpha mask. A boy who'd been burned, who'd built walls so high he didn't know how to climb them. I stepped closer, close enough to smell the cedar in his cologne, to hear the shaky exhale he let out. "You don't get to test me again," I said, voice steady now. "If we do this, it's real. No games." He nodded, and when he reached for me, I let him. His arms were warm, solid, and for a moment, I believed we could fix it. But life doesn't pause for happy endings. A week later, I was in the doctor's office, staring at a clipboard, the words "biopsy results" swimming in my vision. The room smelled like antiseptic, sharp and sterile, and the doctor's voice was too calm, like she was reading a weather report. "Ethan, it's leukemia. We caught it early, but we need to start treatment soon." The world tilted, and I gripped the chair, the plastic creaking under my fingers. Cancer. The word was a blade, slicing through every plan, every dream. I thought of Caleb, of his lies, of the way he'd held me on that bridge. Could I tell him? Could I trust him with this? I didn't go home that night. I wandered the streets, the city a blur of headlights and honks, my phone buzzing with Caleb's texts. "Where are you? I'm worried." I ignored them, my chest tight with fear and something heavier, shame. I didn't want to be the sick guy, the one he'd pity. I wanted to be the guy he fell for, the one who made him laugh over burnt toast and bad karaoke. But the truth was sinking in. I was sick, and nothing would be the same. The hospital was a maze of white walls and beeping machines, the kind of place that makes you feel like you're already half gone. I sat on the exam table, paper crinkling under me, while the oncologist droned on about treatment plans, chemo, radiation, percentages that sounded more like bets than promises. My hands were clammy, and the fluorescent lights buzzed like a swarm of angry bees. I hadn't told Caleb yet. It had been 3 days since the diagnosis, and I dodged him like a ghost, leaving his calls unanswered, his texts unread. Every time I thought about telling him, my throat closed up, like the words were too heavy to push out. I wasn't ready for the way he'd look at me. Would it be pity? Fear? Or worse, would he pull away like I was a problem he couldn't fix? I kept replaying our last night together. Before the doctor's call turned my world upside down. We'd been at my place, tangled in sheets, his laughter warm against my skin as we argued over who'd pick the next song on the playlist. His fingers had traced lazy circles on my back, and I'd felt safe, like nothing could touch us. Now, everything felt fragile, like a glass sculpture teetering on the edge. I left the hospital with a stack of pamphlets and a prescription I couldn't pronounce. The air outside was thick with the smell of wet asphalt and exhaust, the city grinding on like it didn't care that I was falling apart. I walked to the diner, my sketchbook tucked under my arm, hoping the familiar hum of the place would ground me. But when I pushed through the door, the bell jingling above me, I froze. Caleb was there in our booth, his head in his hands. He looked up, and his eyes, God, those eyes, were a storm of worry and something deeper, something that made my chest ache. "Ethan," he said, standing so fast the table wobbled. "Where the hell have you been?" His voice was rough, like he hadn't slept in days. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. The truth was a weight I couldn't lift. "I thought you were done with me," he said, softer now, stepping closer. The diner smelled like burnt coffee and fry grease, but all I could focus on was the cedar in his cologne, the way it pulled me back to every moment we'd shared. "I'm not," I managed. my voice barely above a whisper. I just needed time. He didn't buy it. I could see it in the way his jaw tightened, the way he searched my face like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Talk to me, he said, and it wasn't a request. I wanted to. I wanted to spill everything. The fear, the diagnosis, the way I was terrified he'd see me as broken. But instead, I shook my head, muttering something about work, and slid into the booth. He sat across from me, his knee brushing mine under the table, and for a moment we were just us again. But the pamphlets in my bag felt like a ticking bomb. That's when she walked in. A woman, mid-30s, all sharp cheekbones and designer heels that clicked like gunshots on the linoleum. She scanned the room, her eyes landing on Caleb like she'd been looking for him her whole life. "Caleb!" she called, her voice bright but edged with something I couldn't place. He stiffened, his hand tightening around his coffee mug. "Lila," he said, and the name hit me like a warning shot. Who was she? An ex? A sister? A creditor? My mind spun, but Caleb's face gave nothing away, just a flicker of unease in his eyes. She slid into the booth next to him, too close, her perfume sharp and expensive, like jasmine and ambition. "You've been dodging my calls," she said, her smile tight, like it was hiding teeth. Caleb glanced at me, then back at her. "Been busy," he said, his voice clipped. She laughed, a sound like breaking glass, and leaned in, her hand brushing his arm. "Busy playing house in this dump?" Her eyes flicked to me, dismissive, like I was part of the furniture. I bristled, but Caleb's hand found mine under the table. A quick squeeze that said, "Stay with me." "Lila's an old friend," he said, but the way he said it made it clear she was more than that. "From back home." Back home? He'd never mentioned a home, never mentioned her. My stomach twisted. The betrayal from his money lie still fresh, now layered with this new mystery. "Nice to meet you," I said, my voice flat, forcing a smile that felt like a grimace. Lila barely acknowledged me, her attention locked on Caleb. "We need to talk," she said, lowering her voice, but I caught the edge of urgency. "It's about the estate." Estate, the word hung in the air, heavy with implications. Caleb's grip on my hand tightened, and I felt the world shift again, like the ground was slipping out from under me. "Not now," he said, his tone final, but Lila wasn't backing down. "You can't keep running, Caleb. It's time to come home." She stood, tossing a business card on the table, her name embossed in gold. "Lila Hawthorne, attorney at law. Call me," she said, and then she was gone, her heels echoing like a countdown. I pulled my hand away, my heart pounding. "What the hell was that?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. Caleb sighed, a long, heavy sound that carried the weight of secrets. "She's from my old life," he said, staring at the card like it was a grenade. "Before I came here, before I changed things." I waited, but he didn't elaborate, just rubbed his temples like he could erase the tension. "Changed what, Caleb? Who are you?" My voice broke, and I hated how small it sounded. He looked at me, his eyes pleading, but before he could answer, my phone buzzed. The hospital. A reminder for my first chemo session. I stood, my chair scraping against the floor, and grabbed my bag. "I can't do this right now," I said, and walked out, leaving him with his secrets and mine. That night, I sat on my couch, the pamphlets spread out like a grim collage. The words blurred: acute myeloid leukemia, aggressive treatment, survival rates. I wanted to call Caleb, to tell him everything, but Lila's face kept flashing in my mind. Her words about his estate, looping like a bad song. Was he some kind of runaway heir, a con artist, or just a guy who didn't know how to be honest? I didn't know what hurt more, the cancer eating away at my future or the fear that Caleb's love was another lie. The chemo room smelled like antiseptic and despair, a sterile coldness that clung to my skin. I sat in a recliner, a needle in my arm, the drip bag swaying slightly above me like a pendulum counting down. The other patients were quiet, some reading, some staring into space, their faces etched with the kind of exhaustion that goes deeper than bone. I tried to sketch, but my hands shook, the pencil slipping, leaving jagged lines on the page. All I could think about was Caleb, His lies, his touch, the way he'd looked at me in the diner, like I was the only thing keeping him tethered. I hadn't seen him since Lila showed up 2 weeks ago. I'd blocked his number, deleted his voicemails without listening. But he was still there, in every corner of my mind, his voice whispering my name in the quiet moments. I hated how much I missed him, how much I wanted to believe he was more than his secrets. But the cancer had sharpened everything, made every choice feel like a deadline. I couldn't afford to trust someone who'd already broken me once. Then, one evening, he found me. I was at the park, sketching the old oak tree by the pond. Its branches twisted like they were reaching for something they'd never touch. The air was crisp, smelling of damp earth and fading summer. I heard his boots crunching on the gravel before I saw him, and my heart lurched, half hope, half dread. "Ethan," he said, his voice soft but urgent, like he was afraid I'd run. I didn't look up, just kept sketching, my pencil digging into the paper. "You can't keep doing this," he said, sitting on the bench beside me, close enough that I could feel the warmth of him, even through my jacket. "You're shutting me out, and I don't even know why." I laughed, sharp and bitter, and finally met his eyes. They were the same stormy gray, but now they were shadowed, like he hadn't slept in weeks. "You don't get to play the victim, Caleb," I said, my voice low, trembling with everything I'd been holding back. "You lied about who you are, and then Lila shows up, talking about some estate? What are you, some secret millionaire? A fugitive? Tell me, because I'm done guessing." My chest heaved, and I felt the tears burning, but I wouldn't let them fall. "Not now." He exhaled, a shaky sound, and ran a hand through his hair. "I was going to tell you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But it's not simple, Ethan. My family, they're complicated. Old money, old rules. I left because I couldn't breathe there. I wanted to be someone else, someone who didn't have to play their games." He paused, his hands clenching into fists. "Lila's their lawyer. She's trying to drag me back, to settle things I walked away from. The estate, it's my father's. He died last year, and I'm the only one left to inherit." The words hit like a tidal wave. Inheritance. Old money. It explained the clean hands, the confidence, the way he carried himself like he owned the world but didn't want it. "So you pretended to be poor to what? See if I'd love you without the cash." My voice cracked, and I hated it, hated how raw I felt. He nodded, his eyes locked on mine, pleading. "I know it was wrong. I know I hurt you. But I was scared, Ethan. Scared you'd see the money and not me." I stood, my sketchbook falling to the ground, pages fluttering in the breeze. "You didn't give me a chance to see you," I said, my voice rising. "You decided for me. And now—" I stopped, the truth clawing at my throat. I wanted to tell him about the cancer, about the chemo, about the fear that kept me up at night. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I turned and walked away, the crunch of gravel under my feet drowning out his call. The next day, I met Jamie. He was in the chemo room, a skinny kid with a buzz cut and a grin that didn't match the 4 in his arm. He was 19, all sharp wit and reckless energy, like he was daring the cancer to keep up. "You look like you're plotting a jailbreak," he said, nodding at my sketchbook. I laughed, the first real laugh in weeks, and we started talking. He told me about his band, how he'd play guitar until his fingers bled, how he was writing a song about beating this thing. His optimism was infectious, a spark in the sterile gloom. We swapped stories, and for a moment, I forgot about Caleb, about the lies, about the weight in my chest. But Jamie wasn't just a distraction. He saw through me, saw the way I flinched when my phone buzzed with another text from Caleb. "Boyfriend trouble?" he asked, one eyebrow raised, his voice light but knowing. I sighed, the sound heavy with everything I couldn't say. "Something like that," I muttered. Jamie leaned back, his foreline swaying. "You know, when I got diagnosed, I told everyone I cared about. No secrets. Secrets are like cancer. They eat you up inside." His words hit hard, and I felt the truth of them settle in my bones. I was hiding from Caleb, just like he'd hidden from me. Maybe we were both cowards. That night, I unblocked Caleb's number. I didn't call, didn't text, just stared at his name on my screen, my thumb hovering over the call button. The chemo was starting to take its toll. My hair was thinning, my skin pale, my energy drained. I didn't want to face him like this, but Jamie's words kept echoing. No secrets. I fell asleep with the phone in my hand, dreaming of Caleb's arms around me, his voice promising forever. The hospital room was too quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your eardrums, broken only by the steady beep of the monitor. I was 3 months into chemo, my body a battleground, my hair gone, my skin sallow. I felt like a ghost of myself, but Jamie's visits kept me tethered. He'd sneak in with contraband snacks, cracking jokes about hospital food, his laugh a lifeline. But today, I was alone, staring at the ceiling. When the door creaked open, it was Caleb. He looked like he'd been through a war. Hair messy, eyes bloodshot, his jacket crumpled like he'd slept in it. He froze in the doorway, his breath catching as he took me in. "Ethan," he whispered, and the sound of my name in his voice broke something in me. I hadn't seen him since the park, hadn't answered his calls. But here he was, real and raw and standing in front of me. "How did you?" I started, but my voice cracked, weak from the chemo. He stepped closer, his boots heavy on the tile, and I saw the tears in his eyes, glistening under the harsh lights. "Jamie," he said, his voice thick. "He found me, told me everything." My heart sank. Jamie, that little traitor with his big heart and bigger mouth. I wanted to be angry, but all I felt was relief, like a dam breaking. Caleb sank into the chair beside my bed, his hands shaking as he reached for mine. I let him, his fingers warm against my cold skin, and for a moment we just sat there, the beeping monitor counting the seconds. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice breaking. "I could have been here. I could have." He stopped, a sob catching in his throat, and I saw the regret etched in every line of his face. "I didn't want you to stay out of pity," I said, the words spilling out, raw and honest. "I wanted you to love me for me, not because I'm this." I gestured at the hospital gown, the bald head I hadn't let him see until now. His grip tightened, and he shook his head, tears spilling over. "I do love you, Ethan. I loved you when I thought you'd leave me for my money. I loved you when you walked away. And I love you now, like this, exactly like this." His voice was fierce, like he was daring me to argue, and I felt my own tears burning, hot and unstoppable. He climbed onto the bed, careful not to tangle the and pulled me into his arms. His jacket smelled of cedar and rain, and I buried my face in it, letting the sobs come. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice muffled against my shoulder. "I'm so sorry I lied. I thought I was protecting myself, but I was just scared. Scared of losing you." I clung to him, my fingers digging into his back, and for the first time in months, I felt whole, like his arms could hold all my broken pieces together. The twist came a week later. I was out of the hospital, back at my apartment, Caleb by my side, helping me with the little things. Making tea, adjusting pillows, his presence a quiet strength. We were watching a movie, his arm around me, when his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face paling, and I saw the name. "Lila." "What now?" I asked, my voice sharp, the old wound still tender. He hesitated, then handed me the phone. It was an email from Lila to Caleb, subject, "Your father's will." I read it, my heart pounding. His father hadn't just left him money. He'd left him a company, a tech empire worth billions, with Caleb as the sole heir. But there was a catch. To claim it, Caleb had to return to New York, take over as CEO, and leave this life behind. The email was cold, clinical, but Lila's words were clear. "This is your legacy. Don't throw it away for a fling." I looked at Caleb, my chest tight. "Is this why she came?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He nodded, his jaw clenched. "I told her no. I told her I'm not going back." "But it's your family," I said, the words tasting like ash. "Your future." He shook his head, his eyes fierce. "You're my future, Ethan. I don't care about the money, the company, any of it. I care about you." He took my face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away tears I hadn't realized were falling. "I'm not leaving you. Not now, not ever." The climax hit me like a wave. I was crying, he was crying, and we were holding each other like the world was ending. But it wasn't. It was beginning. I saw it then, the truth that had been there all along. Love isn't about tests or secrets or money. It's about showing up, broken and scared, and choosing each other anyway. We'll fight this together, Caleb said, his voice steady now, a vow. The cancer, the company, all of it. I'm not going anywhere. And in that moment, I believed him. The road ahead was uncertain. Chemo, recovery, the shadow of his family's empire. But we'd face it together. I thought of Jamie, his reckless grin, his words about secrets. He was right. No secrets. Just us, raw and real, ready to write our own story. We'd beat the odds, not because we were fearless, but because we were in it together, hearts open, no masks. And that was enough.